I just wanna ride my bike, yeah. I'm just sick of always watching the news. I just wanna go outside, yeah. Spend a weekend way up top with a view.
Hey, what is up, everybody? It's been a while, but let's get back into it. I'm gonna start off this episode by reading a quote from the tag of one of the Cliff Keen athletic shirts that I bought a few months ago. So, Cliff Keen was a true innovator, whether it was winning on a national or international level, creating new training techniques, or creating equipment that would change the sport. He was a man whose passion for the sport was unparalleled. Cliff Keen Athletic continues his tradition, still owned and operated by second and third generation Keens, who are committed to creating and supplying superior performance gear inspired by a true original. Okay, so yeah, Coach Cliff Keen. So just a little background on this. Talking about some NCAA wrestling coaches. So Cliff Keen was one of the founding fathers of modern day USA wrestling. He helped shape the sport on like the image on what wrestling is today. Coach Cliff Keen's influence trickled down to some of the most recognizable names in wrestling today. So Coach Cliff Keen coached Harold Nichols of University of Michigan, who won an NCAA title at 145 in 1939. And after his career, Harold Nichols became the coach at Iowa State, who coached Dan Gable. He's very famous in the wrestling community. He almost got a perfect record. He only lost his last match. So very legendary. Really, really good coaches. Yeah. And Gable is known for his relentless and competitive style. He ended up winning 2 NCAA titles, Olympic gold, and 15 NCAA titles together as a coach. Coach Cliff Keen's aggressive style for practices still continue to this day, for being passed on from coach to athlete all these years, and it will still continue to be shared. During World War II, Coach Cliff Keen joined the Navy as a commander and taught hand-to-hand combat, furthering his skills as a coach and utilizing his skills in the subject. The company Cliff Keen Athletic was founded in Ann Arbor, Michigan in 1958 by Coach Cliff Keen. The business was there to fill a niche for wrestlers and officials wear. Okay, so the proper and full name of the company is Cliff Keen Athletic, and they are in the sporting goods industry. They're headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan, founded in 1958, making it 62 years old, by Coach Cliff Keen and his son Jim Keen, and they found a niche to supply wrestlers with gear such as headgear and gear for officials. And today it is still a privately held company. Cliff Keen Athletic, the business is still ran within the Keen family. For Tom Keen, Cliff Keen's grandson is the current president of the company. So it's pretty nice to see a company ran through the generations and down the line. From the start of Coach Cliff Keen and his son Jim Keen co-inventing the wrestling headgear together, served as a CEO for a period of time and became a tournament sponsor. So yeah, the Cliff Keen Athletic Company and the Keen family has been very involved within the wrestling world, from being competitors in the sport to even the Cliff Keen Las Vegas Collegiate Wrestling Invitational Tournament. This is probably one of the bigger wrestling tournaments in NCAA college wrestling. Lots of the top 25 schools compete there, so it's pretty big, pretty competitive tournament. how big is this company? There's not that much information on the company. It's a pretty private company. I mean, yeah, it's a privately held company, so they don't have to share anything to the public, like their numbers and stuff. But yeah, they do keep things pretty low key. You see Cliff Keen and everything, especially if you're watching, obviously, Division I college wrestling. And you also see a lot of them in high school wrestling. A lot of the singlets are made from Cliff Keen. But yeah, this does seem to be a pretty small to medium-sized company. They operate with about 11 to 50 employees. They're a pretty lean operation. They're probably closer to around 30, 40 employees. But yeah, it's a very lean operation, and they have a pretty powerful impact in the wrestling community. If you watch any wrestling from high school to college, you'll definitely see someone with a Cliff Keen backpack or some warm-ups or a singlet. The key product that they have is like a high-quality wrestling headgear. So the headgear is meant to protect your ears while you're wrestling, so you don't get cauliflower ear. And cauliflower ear is just like blood that accumulates in your ear, so it just prevents that. They make wrestling singlets, workout clothing for when you're practicing, and they also make custom warm-ups for teams. Some unique or noteworthy culture in the company. Coach Cliff Keen has a Western background. He came from Oklahoma, and aside from the wrestling or from the aggressive practice style, he puts his own culture to it. Some quotes from Coach Cliff Keen were, "There's never a horse that couldn't be rode, never a wrestler that couldn't be thrown." Always bringing humility into the conversation whenever it applied. Another quote by him, he says, "Wrestling teaches self-confidence, it teaches work ethic, it teaches you discipline. And the biggest thing it teaches you is humility. There's always someone who can kick your butt. Don't get too good for yourself." Yeah, I would agree with that quote. You definitely learn a lot from the sport. And you have to stay humble. There's a lot of good people out there. Another lasting impact that Keen has put into the sport of wrestling was changing the boundaries of a wrestling mat from a square to a circle. So that's a pretty big, important impact in the sport, because yeah, it's like synonymous with wrestling, the circle, especially for freestyle. They usually have the multiple colored circle rings. So yeah, it's pretty big impact. So Coach Cliff Keen's thinking behind it was just too easy for wrestlers to go out of bounds with a square, so they changed it to a circle, and yeah, really impacted the sport in that way. So yeah, he was the inventor. Coach Cliff Keen was the inventor of current wrestling headgear that we see today. He invented, patented, and sold the headgear to wrestlers who had cauliflower ear or needed protection to prevent it. If you don't know what it is, ear gets damaged usually in combat sports. Blood begins to form within the ear, and then you just get these big ol' puffy ears. So that's what the headgear was for, and it's required for collegiate high school style wrestling, and internationally for freestyle they usually don't have headgear. So yeah, just for collegiate style wrestling. And this project took a decent team to make the headgear. Yeah, asked help from his engineering friends, get the good design, find a good material, and they eventually used the foam padding, and they got some inspiration for the straps to lock it over the head from a brassiere. So that's kind of funny. And they sell about 90 to 95% of all wrestling gear. They first started in the basement and paid University of Michigan wrestlers a little bit of money just to assemble these headgear. So a nice, cool little side job while wrestling back in the day. I also news about the Cliff Keen Athletic today is that they have been named the preferred provider for apparel for the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. It would make much sense because, yeah, Cliff Keen was just involved and they had such a positive and important relationship within the wrestling community. As a former wrestler in high school and a fan of collegiate and international wrestling, I've seen Cliff Keen athletic warm-ups and singlets on many wrestling teams. I've also purchased some Cliff Keen workout gear, and the t-shirt is very comfortable. I really like the graphic. Doesn't seem to fade. Pretty decent quality. Would recommend supporting the business if you're in search of some quality athletic apparel. And some other things. Just some critiques. I was just looking on their website. I couldn't find anything on sustainability or steps on tracking their usage or any sustainable material choices or processes. And I think that should be a big step for all businesses, especially today, knowing that we have a limited number of resources and might as well pick the more sustainable option. Make sure people down the line will have a wrestling mat to wrestle on, Just don't carelessly make things. But yeah, I couldn't really find anything on sustainability. It's always good to try and innovate and just keep things fresh, keep things eco-friendly, benefit everybody, especially down the line, benefit the earth, and everything in between. So some recommendations I would have for the companies, just to find some sustainable options for our material or headgear, trying out recycled materials for t-shirts, singlets, or even finding more efficient and sustainable ways to dye your products. Perhaps adding something about the website or to the website about athletes and their gear and the story behind it. Could ask and share people's thoughts on how tough the shirt is, how long they've used it, why they like it. I know they have they use some other athletes to market their product. So, yeah, they do a pretty good job on that. It's always good to add some sustainability. Some other sustainable practices might be recycling old wrestling gear, like old shoes or headgear, making a new material out of that, repurposing it into new products, like a recycled mat or something, a recycled headgear. That would be pretty cool. Recycled t-shirt made out of old t-shirts. Yeah, it'd be pretty cool to see something like that. Some interesting things that I found at the company that they're doing during this pandemic is utilizing technology to check in and stay relevant within the wrestling community, checking in with coaches. So, yeah, they really are still ingrained in the wrestling community today. You can still use their website, buy things. You can you can still use the uniform builder to make kits for the upcoming season once everything opens up. They're all trying to keep athletes active by motivating them with some of these home workout challenges they can try. You can watch these videos, these workout videos, just following their social media pages. Coach Cliff Keen was just more than a coach, more than an inventor. He really put a lasting impact on the sport of wrestling. He was a really creative guy and mentored and led a lot of really great athletes, really great coaches, and definitely put a